Hello guys, today we are going to make this beautiful road scene and like the video if you enjoyed, and let's get started. So let's start by adding a plane, and this is going to be a landscape type of thing, so we need to scale it up like quite a bit. So scale it 8 times, go into the edit mode and subdivide it 20 times. Now we need to make a vertex group so that the road that we need to make is not affected. So just select the faces that you don't want to get affected and Control I to invert the selection. I selected a bit more. Yeah, so Control I to invert the selection and go into the vertex group and add a vertex group and name it displace and assign it. Now go into the modifiers tab and add a displace modifier and add a subdivision subsurface. Now we need to make a new texture and go into the textures and make it a cloud texture now, so everything is affected. So we need to go into the displace modifier and add the vertex group. Now also apply the scale and we'll decrease the mid level so it is a bit higher than the road. Now again go into the textures menu and increase the size and the depth. Shade it smooth and auto smooth, and we'll subdivide it one more time. Now go into the colors and increase the contrast to something like 2. 2 is fine. So that will add a little bit of more depth and the contrast is increased here. Now apply the modifiers and go into the edit mode and extrude it. Now make it flat and add a new plane. Now let's make the road, so add a new plane, scale it up on the x-axis by 8 times and on the y-axis we'll extrude it a little and bring it down. Now I'll be appending the car and the tree model that I got from Sketchfab, and I will add the link in the description for that also. So let's rename our stuff, so name it ground, road and background. Now apply all transform on the tree and move it to the side. Select the car and move it upwards and rotate it by 90 degrees. Scale it up and place it on the road. Now let's add our camera, so using the PR ISO cam, add our camera and change the resolution to 1080 by 1080 and change the orthographic view. Now we we need to scatter the trees, so for that we'll be using geometry nodes. So add a new plane and scale it up. Now add a edge loop and make it like the size of the road, and we'll delete that face. Now select all and subdivide it. Okay. Now go into the modifiers and add a shrink wrap modifier and select our target to the ground, so that will wrap around the ground. Now change the offset so that it goes slightly deeper, and add a geometry node modifier and open that tab. Now disconnect both of these, and to distribute our trees we'll be adding a point distribute, point instance, and attribute randomize. Duplicate the attribute randomize, and for the first attribute randomize, in the attribute we'll write scale, and for the second one it will be rotation. Now select all the nodes and press F to join them. Now we need to select the object, so select our tree. Now these are very big, so we need to make them smaller, and for the rotation change the float to vector, so we don't want any movement on the x and y axis, so make it 0, and we only want rotation on the z axis. Now change the scale to something like 0.3 is fine. Change the in the point distribute, we need to select the Poisson disk and increase the distance and the density, so it will add more trees. Now change we need to decrease the density, something like 3, and the size. Now change the seed and see what you like. No. This will give you random results, so yes, no, I don't like this one. Just go through the seeds and see what you like. Yes, I like this one, so we'll let it be. And now let's start adding the materials. So for the sky, for the world we'll add a sky texture and change the sun elevation to 3 degrees, so you get that nice sunrise golden hour lighting, and change the sun rotation to 15 degrees. We will hide our car. Now for the soil material, we'll add new materials. Select hold Alt and press along the edge, so it will select all the faces around. Now assign it to soil material, and For the soil material, we'll use a noise texture, and we'll use a Musgrave texture, and we'll mix them both and use them in the normal, and change the base color to something like brown. Now we need to add a mapping node and plug that into the UV. Now bump up the detail on both the Musgrave texture and the noise texture, and increase the scale of the noise texture and decrease the scale of the Musgrave texture. Now this is not UV unwrapped, so we need to UV unwrap it. Select all, U, and Smart UV project. So now we have the soil material, and we'll also bevel this slightly. Bevel that out, and I got the road material from Polygon, so I will add the link. If you have Node Wrangler enabled, so press the principal BSDF and Ctrl Shift T, so that will bring up your file manager, and you can select where your textures are, so you can get whole PBR texture without doing anything. Now we don't need the displacement, so delete that. Now we need to UV project it, so U and project from view. Now go into the shader editor, UV editor, and we should have that. Why don't we have the image? Yeah, there we go. So scale it up and make it like as big as the texture. Now we have the road, and now let's add the soil, like the ground and the soil. So I got all that from Quixel Megascans. So let me open that, and this is mossy rocky ground. Now select it, and in the base we'll add a new material. Select all the top faces and assign our mossy rocky ground material to it. Shader editor, and our bevel doesn't have any ground, so we'll have to do that also. And we need to decrease the size, so 0.5, so that will give a little bit of tiling. Now select the beveled edges. And assign the ground texture to it. Now for the background, we'll make a new material and make it black increase the metallicness, decrease the specular, decrease the roughness, and we have our background. Now I also added some rocks, so export them, move them around, and now we want the car to be moving, so we need to add a bit of motion blur. So to add that motion blur, we'll move the car back, we'll open up the timeline. Now I to insert a keyframe and insert location. Now move to frame 10 or something, 10 should be fine, and move it again and insert the keyframe. Now select the keyframe where the car is in the middle and go into the scene settings and enable motion blur, and you can change the amount of motion blur that you have, so we want very little. Now let's add some grass to the scene. So I will append, I got the grass essentials from Blender Guru, and let me bring that in. So we need to duplicate, we need to remove this upper end. So just P and separate it by loose parts, so that will make a different plane. Now on that, add a particle system and add the grass. Now if we go into the face orientation, you will see that it is red, so it is an inverted face. So select all and shift N to recalculate normals. That should work, but that didn't. Inside, okay. Now we'll see our grass also. So recalculating the normals, as we separated the ground, so we need to change the scatter also. So select the scatter, go into the shrink wrap modifier and select the ground. Now we need to go into the particle systems and change the number to something like 15,000 and change the scale and change the scale to 0.5. Okay. Now again we need to make a vertex group. So just select the road side and make a new vertex group and name it grass, and go into the particle systems, and in the field weights, we'll go into the vertex groups. In the density, we'll add the grass and invert it, so it will add the grass not on the road and everywhere else. Now if we render the scene, so that looks pretty good. So in the final render, I added some like the guardrails, so you can get that from Quixel Megascans, and there we have it. Thank you for watching, and please like the video and subscribe. Thank you.